Welcome back to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Nicolette Somers.
Hi, Nikki. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for your time today and educating all of us about your peripartum cardiomyopathy PPCM experience. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and what year were you first diagnosed?
Well, my name's Nikki. I live just outside Detroit, Michigan. I was diagnosed in October of 2020.
So that was like right when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, so it was really hard. So I wasn't allowed any visitors each time I was in the hospital. So that was a little rough.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Not your husband or no one?
No. When I was first diagnosed, my husband was allowed to be there. But I ended up in the hospital again in November, which is when they told me I would be tested and evaluated for a heart transplant. So he wasn't allowed to be with me then. And then when I had my surgery, he was allowed to take me in and I saw him when I woke up, but then after that I didn't see him. And I was in there for 3 weeks after my surgery.
So, you say surgery, I guess let's back up. Were you diagnosed during your pregnancy or at a life threat?
It was afterwards. So I gave birth to my son in July 2020. And then the first month was fine. And then I started to notice certain symptoms and I wasn't feeling good. But I kept putting it off because everyone was like, oh, you're always tired, this and that. So I was like, okay, maybe this is how you're supposed to feel. I put it off for a while. I finally went to the ER in October and that's when I was diagnosed. And then it kept getting worse. The medicine wasn't working. And so I ended up having a heart transplant.
You are on the heart transplant. Okay. Yeah, I say in a lot of the videos, 1 in 20 women in the United States are, PPCM is responsible for 1 in 20 heart transplants. Only due to never diagnosed or treated until a life threat. And then at that point, yeah. So I'm so very sorry. How is your healing recovering?
It's been really good. The first few months were rough. But by the end of the first year, I was feeling great. Like, I don't even think you could tell I had a heart transplant. Okay. And then actually, this past February, so last month, I had a biopsy and it showed rejection. So I actually ended up in the hospital again last month for a few days. And I have another biopsy in 2 weeks. So I'm hoping all the rejection's gone.
Yeah. What was your last EF percent, your ejection fraction?
It was 65%.
Amazing.
Yeah. So before, when I was diagnosed, it went down. When I was first diagnosed, it was 25%. And then before my transplant, it went down to 15%.
And obviously all of this has happened while you just gave birth. Who was your biggest support through all of this?
I was lucky. I had a lot of support. My husband was very supportive. My whole family was supportive. All of my husband's family was very supportive. I've been very lucky with the amount of support that I've had.
Amazing. And they were like supportive with the baby and they were able to care for the baby. And that's amazing. That you had such, teamwork, because that's what it kind of, requires. My mom always said it takes a whole village to raise, a child. So especially with PPCM and going through everything, it's definitely challenging for sure. What was, did you have, like for me, I mean, I had insurance and everything, but did you have good coverage for insurance?
We did, thankfully. My husband's work has great insurance. So I believe like my total amount of bills so far has totaled to over $1 million. And we've had to pay nowhere near that out of pocket. We've had to pay some, but it's good insurance. Thankfully, we have that. And we actually got it just before everything happened too. So I was actually on my works insurance when I gave birth. And right after that, we ended up switching to my husband's, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I remember that my what was it? It was a 200. It was over $288,000 with my like cardiac death coma experience. So I had excellent insurance. Actually, I'm a Teamster. I'm a local 399. So and then when my insurance called me and they're like, you haven't been sick in like 18 years. And now you're like, what is going on? And when I told them that, I survived, cardiac death, maternal mortality, and, and that's preventable and all of this, they said, okay, well, we're going to just cover everything. So everything that I just got like, this is not a bill. This is not a bill.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then they waived everything for me. So yeah, having excellent insurance is like, is definitely key. Which I knew that my father, he always said, make sure you get a job with excellent insurance, because you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, yeah, this is like definitely the silent killer over here for women and healthy women, that have had no prior health issues. Did you have any prior health issues before your pregnancy-induced heart failure?
Nope, I've never been seriously sick or anything. And my whole entire pregnancy was fine. My delivery went great. I was ready to get pregnant again right away. Like everything went so well. And then I just got sick out of nowhere. Yeah.
And that's why the NT-Pro BNP test, now that you are aware of the test, that is the diagnosis to be treated, as well as the SFLT1 and the PIGF, which is the placental growth factor, and the EKG, as well as the echocardiogram and possibly chest X-ray.
Yeah.
Which should all be mandatory, and hopefully when our children have babies someday, they'll have already raised the standards by this point.
I hope so, yes.
Awareness now.
Yeah.
So, do you remember what your BNP test number was?
I don't think I ever had one when I was being diagnosed. They diagnosed me through all the other tests. So I had EKGs, I had echocardiograms, I did chest X-rays, I did an MRI. I think I'm missing something else. So they diagnosed me through all of that. I don't know if I ever actually had the BNP test, and if I did, I don't know what the level was.
So, what was it that alerted them that you needed the heart transplant? What was with your native heart, what was your EF percent?
So when I was diagnosed, I was at 25%. And then they started me on medication first. They're hoping that was going to help. And then I ended up getting sick again like a month later. I ended up back in the hospital. And they ran the tests all over again, and they realized that my EF had dropped down to 15%. So I was actually transferred to another hospital who actually was more familiar with PPCM and like knew how to handle it and everything. Mm-hmm. So I was put under a more intense medication regimen, and that still wasn't helping. So then they started the process of being tested and evaluated for heart transplant. They said that was probably the best way to go. And then I was discharged to go home, and I think it took a couple of days for me to actually be listed. They had to wait for approval from insurance. Mm-hmm. And then I was lucky. I was only listed for 9 days. 9 days later, I got the call that a heart was available. So within the first few months of everything happening, from giving birth to my son to being diagnosed, I had a heart transplant.
It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And how old were you when you were diagnosed in 2020?
I was 29.
Yeah. And that's what I think women, like young women, we don't, especially with no prior, history of any type of health complications. It's interesting because this is a pregnancy-induced complication where it can happen to just like the healthiest person. And, it's all based on how our placenta grows, and each pregnancy is different. Each growth is different. So, with that and having a new heart and everything, are you planning on having more children?
I would love to, but I am not able to, unfortunately. With the medication that I'm on, I can't come off it. It's anti-rejection medication, and I can't get pregnant while I'm on it because it causes birth defects. So unfortunately, we won't be expanding our family. And we looked into adoption, but it's very expensive. So I'm not sure if we're going to do that route either, but I think we might still explore it in the future, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that adoption is definitely is one way to go, although yes, it is extremely expensive. But yes, for me, with having, that much, just, such a hardship, I don't want to risk it. My son is my everything, so I would never, jeopardize for me. I can just give him all my love, and do that. That's usually what I tell other moms. I've learned to accept that. I'm now 5 years out, so I've evolved and, kind of like weighed everything in life. And so did you have a boy or a girl?
I had a boy. His name's Beckett, and I love him so much. He is my everything.
Exactly. It's like we would like totally go through that all over again just to, have them. I know that's how like my Liam is. He's just so precious. So I guess now that you've learned about this disease and you've recently went through it, what do you think like would be advice for, what state are you in again?
I'm in Michigan.
You're in Michigan. Which part of Michigan?
I live just outside Detroit. I'm about 5 minutes north.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My husband's he was born in Wisconsin, but raised in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Plymouth.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know where that is.
So, yeah, I guess now that I mean, I do miss the snow. I have to say, I'm from New Jersey, Philadelphia. So I'm actually, everyone's like, oh, it's snowy. I'm like, well, it's always beach weather here, in sunny California. Which, grass is greener on the other side always, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm like, I want skis. And you're like, I want the beach. But I feel like, now that like it's been, it's been like a full year. It's been a full year. How has this obviously when we're moms, we become a mom, our lives change. But for this, how has this changed you, like in your perception of pregnancies now?
For pregnancy, I still think it's one of the most beautiful things ever and so amazing. And since my whole experience, I've been trying to get the word out there about PPCM. Anytime I see or hear someone pregnant, I will message them or get in contact with them and just let them know. I don't think it's something that people should be afraid of. I don't want them hearing this story and being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't get pregnant, because I don't want them to feel that. Because there are steps to take. You can be monitored, you can take all these tests, you can find out. And so I don't want to steer people away from that. I think it's amazing. And I love my little man so much. He is my everything. You just need to be aware of your body. I felt like something was wrong, but I had never been pregnant before. So I thought that this was just normal. People are like, oh, you're always tired. You just had a baby. You're not sleeping. And even though I felt it was different, I kept putting it off. So I think my best advice would be just listen to your body. Something's wrong. And if your doctor isn't listening, it's never wrong to get a second opinion about it.
Yeah, I agree. I just feel like there's such awareness within ourselves that our bodies do tell us when we're not well. And whether or not the tests come out normal. If something's not right, it's like test more. You know, self-advocacy, like you're talking about, definitely comes into play. I feel like, you know, what you were saying about how, you know, with just when, you know, we know our bodies, and when the testings, that's what I was so struggling with, is that my testings always coming out normal. But I knew, and I felt, and I looked not normal. So it was very discouraging, that, you know, it was definitely a mind trip, that here I was like saying I'm dying, and they're like, you're fine. So, you're just tired. You're just this. So, dismissing, you know, young women who are literally suffering to like death. You know, we do hope for change. And that's what happened to me. Like, I just kept telling everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are, you know, a clerk at the Home Depot, or anybody, CVS, the person behind the counter giving my medicine. I educate everybody. And I always kind of start off, whereas, you know, I don't know why informative, life-saving information has become fearful and not informative. And, you know, it's not to scare, but it is to be aware. I mean, if there's something that can be prevented, I'd rather prevent it than deal with the consequences of this horrible catastrophe that is actually preventable. So I just always use the approach, whereas when I first woke up from this, because I was so healthy and fine, any woman that passed me that was pregnant, and I still get my throat, I always say to them, you know, basically my approach was, if you don't do this, you can possibly die. And I'd scared them terribly. And my husband's like, you can't do that. You can't say that. And I'm like, well, it's true. Like, they could die. Like, I had cardiac death. And I was like so scared for like some women, because I would say, you're swollen, or, you know, you don't know unless you're tested. And now I have a less, like, I think, doomsday type of approach. But I needed to like evolve through that, because I was such in like shock that, you know, I had to go through that, and I don't want any other woman to go through that, just like you wouldn't want anyone to go through that. So that's why I built the website and the platform and the docuseries and the podcast and anything else that can get the word out, so there can, you know, be real change and change history, literally, for all women moving forward, now that we have the preventions and the information that we have today, that, you know, we demanded for it to be applied. Because I think women saying, I don't feel well, and self-advocating and know their body, even though, you know, that's great advice that we can give. It's like, but it's like, why? It should just be mandatory. That way we don't have to like be like, ow, like we're dying. And you're like, and they're like, no, you're fine. And we're like, no, we're actually dying. And they're like, no, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. So
yeah, I feel like I got very lucky with the doctors I had. So the first hospital I went to, the doctor that diagnosed me, he had heard of it before. So he knew some information about it, but all the other doctors and nurses, they're all like, I'm not familiar with this. I've never heard this before. And I was like, I hadn't either, but apparently I'm going through it. And then the other hospital I was transferred to, everyone there knew about it, because all the women that are sick with this, they get sent there because they are better equipped to treat it. So like, just
but
with
that's
the
what I
work
don't understand. The locations that are better equipped to handle this, how come they haven't spoken up? Like, how come they haven't?
No, I never thought about that either. That's a good question.
Well, I also say, you know, not to throw anybody under the bus, because I'm really not. I'm just trying to trying to figure this out and be transparent about this. Why hasn't the American Heart Association have said anything if they say that they've been aware for over 30 years? Why hasn't the ACOG said anything? How come the hospital that you're mentioning, what hospital is that?
I first went to Beaumont and then I was transferred to Henry Ford.
So if they have the awareness, how come they haven't blasted this? Know your NT-proBNP test. Make sure that in each labor and delivery, there is a protocol test, like some sort of like that meets the standards, whether you're healthy or not. You know, I mean, there are women that have 0 signs and then, you know, boom, like with you, you know, at 29 years old. So I wonder, why hasn't the people that have known, like, blown this out of the water?
Yeah, that would be nice. It would have been nice to know about it. I feel like if I had known about it before, I would have been more aware of my symptoms and like, okay, like I feel like I should go sooner than what I did. And I feel like it's also frustrating because if I did know about it, maybe it wouldn't have gotten to the point where I needed a transplant. I could have maybe gone in sooner and been treated before it got too bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt. I mean, I was suffering starting at 3 months pregnant, and I suffered the entire time. I mean, I went all the way. I mean, I even went, when I went to Cedars-Sinai during my pregnancy, I have a whole album of my son's ultrasound because they kept checking his brain, his heart. You know, Cedars-Sinai, they kept checking him, but they never thought to check me. And I didn't learn about this until I woke up from cardiac death. And I woke up with like this, you know, defibrillator that had to be removed, but my veins are really bad. I mean, it's, you know, and I had this huge thing bulging out of my chest. And I just felt like, you know, a healthy girl should never have to deal with this type of torture. You know what I'm saying? And to wake up with like a foreign device, one that I was allergic to. I was allergic to the nickel, the titanium, the whatever was in there. It was killing me. And then on February 14th, 2018 was when I had it removed. They all said I needed it. And my heart at the Women's Center at UCLA, you know, Dr. Boyle, and he's my electrophysiologist, and Dr. Carol Watson, they both removed it. And they said that it was so bad. It was tangled around it was like tangled in my heart. Wow. It was longer than like I have a picture. It was like longer than my arm. And my heart was blue black. And when they pulled the wire out, my heart started to pump red again. So they said you were in fact dying. And this was 18 months after I did die, because I was pronounced dead over 30 minutes. Each cardiac arrest was in a hyperthermia coma. So I didn't learn about this until after I woke up. So my life threat, I didn't even have any grace, like where I felt like there was even any respect when I woke up from maternal mortality. And I feel like people don't know about this disease because it's not diagnosed, not because it's not common. Yeah. And that's why I always say, you know, this disease is not rare. It's just rarely diagnosed, which is why I started this docuseries to prove that there are so many women, young women, that have suffered and died since the beginning of time, and there's a prevention, and it's not applied, and it's been known, and the people that do know have not really stepped up, is a big reason why.
It is. It's very frustrating. I really wish I would have known about it beforehand. Same. So, I mean, any chance I get, I tell anyone I can.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, I said to my husband, I'm like, I need like literally a megaphone. I need a big microphone, and I'm not going to be able to move on like until there's change, until there's like real change. And I think what that is talking about it, and talking about that real women that are young and healthy with no prior health conditions can actually get heart transplants like you, defibrillator implants like me, and heart failure, healthy girls, just left never diagnosed, so therefore we were never treated, and we were left to die. And as at Cedars-Sinai, Dr. Allison Canavan's office, what was her name? Dr. Erin something, she delivered my baby. She said that I just got the bad luck of the draw. And that was so insulting. Now that I know how insulting that was, that she said that to me, because the only bad luck of the draw that I got, because this is so very common, is having any hospital, including both East and West Tower at Cedars-Sinai, that had absolutely zero awareness, even in the ER, of PPCM. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
And once I went back to them, they were not interested in being informed. They wanted me out of there as quickly as possible. So there you go. Brushed under the rug, and a woman was just died after giving childbirth there November 21st, 2021, which is why I started this docuseries, because nobody's listening. They hear a big name in Beverly Hills, or they hear a big name like, Go Red, Wear Red, Heart Association. But it's like, okay, good, go. But where are they going? Because they're not moving anything for women in this, raising the standards for testings for all women in America. They're not. It's free to talk. It's free to spread the awareness. It doesn't cost anything. So, it's a head scratcher. Literally, it's a head scratcher. And so I'm not afraid to speak up, because I feel like nobody has. Not one. Really. I mean, they talk about women in heart failure. Women are heart failure is the leading cause of women in America. Well, okay. PPCM is responsible for 1 in 20 heart transplants in America, when it's all preventable.
Mm-hmm.
All preventable.
It's probably like the most frustrating part about it all. And it's very sad too, because like you said, there's a lot of moms that don't survive this, and it's treatable, and it's very frustrating.
It's beyond unacceptable, appalling, frustrating, aggravating, traumatizing, dramatic, and nobody understands unless they experienced it themselves. Because it's definitely changed me. I mean, I've rerouted my entire life. I was working in, on top TV shows in Hollywood, and, doing locations and producing. And my heart right now is in this, whereas like, I love what I do. I love my job, my career. I've been doing it for over 18 years, but, until there's real change, I cannot let this just go and be brushed under the rug, just like it has been every single time a woman suffers or dies. There has to be somebody that it has to step up. And so I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And I just said, fine. I said, I'm not somebody, and I'm going to make sure that this is going to be known, which is why June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I am going for the title for Mrs. California and Mrs. America.
And, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I just posted that. The director of the pageant reached out to me, sent me papers. Like, that's how she reached out to me, and sent me papers and said, this is going to help your platform. This is going to get the word out for women. And, so if she believes that I can get the crown and build a platform for this nonprofit, I'm not a pageant woman, but I can definitely, I'm prepared as one. I've been a dancer my whole life, and I've been in Hollywood. I've worked with, the best of the best. So nothing intimidates me. I just need to now, hopefully start getting this awareness out, and hopefully somebody can listen to know what to do and how to make this right. Now that we have the preventions, we have the study team, we have the labs, we have the awareness. Now what? How do we tie it together so this never happens to another woman again?
Right. Yeah. I think that's amazing. And I love this whole docuseries too, and everything you're doing. I think it's great. It's one step towards that.
Yes.
Hopefully we just keep going and can make a difference. And I've had a few people that I went to high school with, and they've reached out to me. And they're like, thank you for sharing your story. They're like, I'll bring up to my doctor. I'm like, thank you so much for saying that. It makes me so happy.
It does. It really, I think there aren't enough words on how I feel when someone listens, and they just say, they recognize, because that's the respect that I feel like we lack. We are literally walking miracles. We survived maternal mortality from a disease that, you're right, most do not survive. Unfortunately, I talked to a lot of their mothers and their sisters and the husbands, and it's like, it's just awful, and it is preventable. That's what's so hard about this disease, that's so devastating, is when you're talking to somebody and they don't know anything about it, and then they find out that it's preventable, and here they lost their mom, or they lost their, it's just not fair. Yeah. It really is just not fair. And that's where I can't roll over at night and just not, figure something out that can just maybe help the wires connect a little better, with this, because it's the lack of respect, but when it is, it's just heart melting. I remember our friend, she said to me, and Lindsay, she left me the most unbelievable voice message, and I haven't talked to her in years, and she's a coworker, fellow locations person, and I saved it because it was the most genuine, real respect for women, and just what I went through. It was I literally, after listening to that voice message, I was in tears. Yeah. I was because, it is, we're grateful when someone says, and they listen. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's the hardest part about this disease, is being taken seriously, listening to us, not just during our suffering until death, but coming out of it and then having to talk about it, what happened. And as women, our natural instinct is to call a friend and talk about it, but who do you call and talk about it with? Because no one's really ever experienced this. Mm-hmm. Which is why the group site is so great, because it's this is a woman disease, and there's no other disease like it. And the fact that it's so preventable is it just makes you question, where is some of the humanity of why this hasn't been resolved, because your native heart would have been fine if you were treated. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have had cardiac death and been in a coma and missed, over a year and a half of my son's life, as a baby. Yeah.
That's been very hard.
Yeah. It's my, it's the one thing that I kind of shut down with, in thinking about, even 5 years out. I think it does. It's definitely an acceptance of letting go, because you can't control that, what happened, but we could just always just move forward and make, um, you know, broaden our intentions today for a better tomorrow, type of, scenario. But it definitely is, it's a hardship. I even with support, I needed medication, because it was hard on me, the everything. How do you sleep at night?
I was sleeping good. But because of the rejection, I'm back on prednisone, which I hate so much. It's a steroid to help with the rejection.
Yeah.
And one of the side effects is insomnia. So not really getting much sleep. And my son still doesn't sleep through the night all the way. So sleep's not great right now, but it was good at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets better. Definitely. But no, I do remember like that insomnia. And then when I would sleep, I would not have a restful sleep.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Worry. We do have subconscious anxiety that we can push away during the day, but it does come out in our sleep, which is why I was having night terrors. I was like holding my breath. I was waking up, my heart would be pounding, and it was common with, heart failure, that we would have post-traumatic, stress, but it would come out, during the day. I'd be fine. Everything would be fine. And then like, I don't know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I'd be like, what is going on? So, medication works great. But for you, that's a different type of medication. How many medications are you on right now?
Now I'm down to about, I think I'm on like 10 different medications. When I first came home from the hospital after my transplant, I was on about 20, and I was taking about 40 pills a day. And now I'm down to, I think it's about 10 medications. And I think I take about 20 something pills a day, which it's not awful. It's not like the worst thing in the world. I do have to take medication the rest of my life. But it's like, I feel like I always have to sleep with like one eye open, or like I can't let myself fully like relax and breathe. I feel like I'm going to constantly be waiting for like the other shoe to drop or something. Like there's always something around the corner, something. It's a weird feeling. Like I feel like I can never be completely like restful, I guess.
No, you hit it on the nail. That's why I asked, and I brought this subject up, because, like, as you say, like our bodies, we know our bodies, and our bodies will tell us when our bodies are not okay. Well, our mind, with the balance scale of the heart and the brain, it's very much a power tool, where when your mind is telling you it's not, it's suffering a little bit, then you want to help it, because it can, lead into other things when you try to fight it and fight it and fight it. How long are you going to fight that for so long? Right. And then what happens is it becomes a conditioned way. And then you develop that conditioned sleeping pattern. So if it continues, are you on any, like for me, I'm on trazodone, and trazodone, I take it, when I put my son down to sleep and I lie with him, and that's when I take it, because it works very quickly. Now, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm not like totally out of it and drugged, but I'm able to sleep where I don't feel like I can't sleep because the shoe might drop, the other shoe might fall, or something might, I might not wake up, or, just things like that. Like it puts you into a sleep where you're rested. I wouldn't like be here today talking if I didn't have my trazodone and Zoloft, to be honest with you. it's been a year now, and I'm a completely different person, like completely. You have a baby, so yeah, you don't, you have you're obviously, women have less sleep, but there's a different type of restless, tired of being a mommy and waking up in the middle of the night because of your baby, and then there's the different tired sleeping because you're worried. There's a different exhaustion with lack of sleep. They're different. It's a different experience why you're tired. Not all tireds have the same tired. Like, there's a different mommy tired than a woman who's been working all day that doesn't have children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a different tired.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that as well. And I feel like, just like awareness within our heart and awareness within our body with our fluid, and just awareness with the BNP, there needs to be also the awareness that, if you're not getting that 8-hour sleep, then you can't be the best mommy you can, throughout the day. So you need that sleep too, just like your baby. But not just sleep, a sleep where when you wake up,
you actually feel rested and like you have energy.
Exactly. So you could be the best you. And that's where I knew, okay, it's been long enough. How long am I going to let myself suffer? How long am I going to be like, okay, I can get through this because I'm an Amazon woman, I'm a survivor, I'm a warrior, I'm this and that, and blah, 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 blah. I could tell myself anything. No. Once I started, and it did take about 8 months, the Zoloft. It took a full year for its full effect. Now, I was also grieving my mom's death. She passed away 4 months after my heart surgery. She had walking pneumonia, healthy, and she passed of a heart infection left in her heart valve. And then my dad died 18 months later. So it was like, boom, boom. I know, it was awful. And here I just gave, it was awful. So I needed to grieve. I needed to go through everything that I went through, but I was still having this issue with my worries of what I went through with PPCM. So it took me I knew I was never going to be the best me unless I had my sleep. Mm-hmm. And sleep heals. It heals your body. So I just was like, this is just ridiculous. I just can't do it anymore. And then it took me that amount of time to realize I will never go off of it because it works. And the ones that go off of it end up going back to, they feel good because the medication works is why. So why go off of it? So now I'm okay with it, with the medication because it works. And my brain and my mind doesn't have the type of perception, because what happened in the past happened. Moving forward, you and I could be talking at 85 years old someday, 90 years old, doing this, different type of Zoom back in the future. And, we'll probably be able to high five each other and touch each other and high five or something. Yeah. But we'll live a very long life. We were fine and healthy before we were pregnant. So, your ejection fraction is 65. I mean, you're obviously meant to live a very, very long life. So it's just, and that's the other thing about this disease. If you recover and you're treated and you're helped, you can live to however long that we were meant to. Maybe our lives would have been a little shortened. Maybe if we lived to 92, who would want to live that long anyway? But if, but if maybe we'd go around in our 80s, 87, but I don't think that because of what we know now that our lives can be recovered and go through. The mental health is what's going to be until we're 85. Our hearts will be fine. You have a beautiful new heart and your heart will be fine. It's just a matter of maintaining and, who knows, maybe hopefully in the next, year or two, you won't have to be on so much medication. You'll be fine. And then all will be well. But it's like almost as if like until we know, we'll never know. And that's where the mindset comes in. Like my mom, she died because she worried herself sick. She got walking pneumonia. Our minds can literally heal our bodies.
Yeah.
And our minds can also make us very sick. And the worry, of her, listening to me suffer and watching me deteriorate, was really hard on her. I'm her daughter. So it's like how we feel about our sons, like they're everything. I was her everything. So it was really hard on her. So it's one of those things where it's like when we overcome this disease physically, the mental part of it and the acceptance that goes along with it and everything is endless. And so if our minds tell us, just like your body was telling you, it needs a little help, add trazodone in the mix. Are you on a trazodone?
I'm not. I recently actually started therapy this year, which I really like, and I'm glad I started it. It's been helping. I tell everyone the whole mental aspect of this whole thing has been harder than any of the physical pain. It's
absolutely
like I can't even describe how hard it is, but the mental part of it that's tough. So the therapy is helping, and I like it a lot. So I don't know, hoping that I've noticed since I started that there has been improvement already. I definitely have some ways to go still, but it's helping. I like it.
Well, that's wonderful because, my mom was really, I'm a big advocate. I'm for mental health. I got my master's in social work. I believe in mental health. I believe in the medicine. I also believe in what my mom used to always say, quoting her, whenever I was feeling whatever. She says, Lindsay, a thought is just a feeling. That's it. If you change the thought, you change the feeling. Mm-hmm. So I think about that. Like if I'm like thinking about, something about like what happened to me, I'll turn on, something, anything, whatever it is, something to distract my mind. And then it changes the thought and then you change the feeling, because you can change your sadness into happiness within a matter of a thought. You can go back and like remember something that was horrible and relive it in that same moment, like we do when we talk about things and we bring it up. We can feel that moment. It's the same thing with things that are, joyful and things that can change that moment. And I think that's what therapy is really helpful is that it teaches your mind to just go to a different thought, because if you change the thought, you change the feeling. And I do believe in therapy, but I also believe in the psychology part of it, where the medicine, like I said, it's been truly helpful. And I think that at 5 years out, it was 4 years out, I said it's time, because not all the amount of therapy. And I did start a fitness workout program because I've been a dancer like my whole life. And I have this, routine. You can see me like where I, even with Miranda's last interview at the docuseries, I was really, really big, and I was definitely relapsing. I had to take my Lasix and it was mostly fluid. Because you look at me today, and that was just in November. But I do have, it's a really good, healthy breathing. My EF now is 71%. But I think, but it's because I have this, I believe that the breathing workout routine that I have always like just makes me feel better. Like when I check in with my body after my workout, I always feel a million times better. So I've been saying that to my husband, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start on Mondays and call it Mom Day for an hour, because why keep this to myself? You know, I mean, I've been dancing my whole life, like I've had since I was 4 years old, and I've never stopped. And I have 3 instructors, and we have a certain routine, and we have for over like 20 something years. And so I take pieces of it and I created my own, and it literally has molded my body. I lost, because ever since the pageant, whatever, I've been dedicated to it. So when you do it and you're dedicated to it and you do it, like, you know, I do it once a day, but I'm going to do it once a week for a fitness. It molded my body. I'm 22 pounds less. I feel so much better, and it's an hour a day. So if you want to participate when you feel better or when you think you're ready, just go to PPCMFund.com and then go to the fitness, and then it's all right there. I have an awesome playlist, but it's really helped me stretch and breathe, and our bodies tense up, our backs tense up, our heart sits on our back. So if you know, it's like it really does help the blood flow, as well as yawning through the breathe is also very helpful. Like I noticed that afterwards, my breathing is a lot better. So if you're interested, just
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. And is there anything that you would want to tell, I guess, anyone who's watching this right now? Is there any message or anything that you want to include?
Like I said earlier, I think you know your body. If something feels wrong, go get it checked out, and don't have the mentality of like, oh, that'll never happen to me, you know, because I feel like I would have thought that too had I known about it. When I was pregnant, I think I've been like, oh, you know, I'll be fine. My pregnancy's great. I have no problems. Just be aware of your body, and you listen to it. It'll tell you something's wrong. So,
Absolutely.
You're stronger than you think you are.
Absolutely. No, wonderful. Thank you so much, and your time today. I really, really appreciate you and
thank you so much
sharing with us today. And your story will definitely, you know, resonate with somebody and hopefully save lives just from listening to your experience, at least preventing, hopefully, you know, which you believe that would have been able to save you, as well as I believe would have been able to save me. It's just having this simple awareness and to know your bodies and self-advocate. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And I look forward to years of connecting with you over the years. Hopefully when we're 80, we'll do another Zoom call and be like, haha, see? Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Have a great day.